But I did want to start with something that was kind of huge that at least happened, which was the Nikola Vucevic traded to the Chicago Bulls. Now, he is a lesser known star in the league because of his play just not being as flashy or anything like that. He is an all-star in the league, and he's having probably the best year of his career. He's 30 years old, so he's basically, right in the middle of his prime. Probably got a couple of good years left in him. So the Bulls are really getting a great, pick up there as far as getting a center who's 7 foot tall, does a lot as far as having an all-around game, just being able to shoot the ball well, post up. He actually is a pretty good facilitator out of the center position too, which is helpful. He does play well off the pick and roll. He can hit some 3-point shots when he's open. He rebounds pretty well. His only thing that you can kind of knock him for is maybe that he's not the best, what I would call like rim protector, but he does everything so well enough that he's just an all-around great player and a great fit for literally any team. I mean, he's one of those players that just will slide in and automatically play whatever role he's going to need to play and play it to the best, that you're probably going to get in the league. So I really love what they did with it. And it does seem immediately like it's a little bit big of a deal. So Wendell Carter Jr. goes over. They're kind of done with him. I personally was kind of done with him too. He kind of felt like he was just too, yeah, he was just kind of too, I don't know, he's just too injury prone all the time. Like he had a lot of talent, and if he's healthy, he'll definitely be a good, solid defensive center in this league who can get you some rebounds, rim protect, all that fun stuff, and play pretty athletically with any athletic big that comes in the game. It's just, I don't really feel comfortable with having him as like my go-to center for the whole season, just because he's inconsistent with being healthy and actually producing. And so I'm okay with losing him. I mean, when there was the draft going on, there was a trade proposal that I saw that was like him and the 4th overall pick, and it was the Golden State Warriors giving us the 2nd pick, and
Oh,
for us to basically turn around and draft Wiseman. And I thought that would have been a great trade because like I said, I understand that he was such a hard guy, hard thing, or hard whatchamacallit, a high draft pick. That's what I'm trying to say. He was basically a high draft pick, and usually with high draft picks, you don't want to part with them too quickly. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I was kind of done with him. The team was kind of done with him. Otto Porter Jr., he's got 1 year left on his contract. Yes, it's a massive contract. He also has been inconsistent with staying healthy. When he's on the field, he's pretty productive, but it's just too much money for a guy who's not out there consistently enough. So getting rid of both of those guys, totally okay with. 2 first-round picks sounds pretty big, but if you don't watch the NBA or know too much about the NBA, you don't fully understand that 2 first-round picks in the NBA aren't as
don't
important as,
matter.
yeah, they're just not as important because really you have to find those gems in the draft, and a lot of those players can happen in the second round. Those players, a lot of times only 2 or 3 players in the draft, each draft every year, are going to be basically, 100% home runs. These are guys that are going to be starters in the NBA for a long time. Then you get a couple stragglers that kind of pop up out of nowhere in the draft that maybe went in the middle of the draft, kind of the picks between like 10 and 20. And then everything from like 20 to 32, it's very hit or miss on whether or not you're going to get a starter or just a consistent role player off the bench. So the Bulls here are expecting to be in the playoffs, which means that they'll have picks out of the lottery for those first round picks. And so they're really not losing as much as you would think. So really, at the end of the day, if they pull in an all-star, the Chicago Bulls finally have 2 all-stars in the league. And I did see the comment over here about not knowing who Vucevic is. Yeah, he's kind of one of those under the radar all stars, really. That just kind of, he plays very well. He does everything super well. I mean, he's a great post up guy. He's got a great jump shot he's developed. He can hit threes, like I said, when he's open. Or has the ability to. He can rebound pretty well. Like I said, the only knock in his game is that he's just not a great defensive player, or like as good of a defensive player as you would like. But in a league nowadays where, maybe that's not as important as having a rim protector was in the early 2000s and things like that, it's, not the end of the world. And I'd rather have an all-star on my team, because what it tells other teams is that you're really trying, that you're actually going to put a team together that will be productive. Because this is a team where if you have one of those big name guys that comes over, I don't know who it'll be, because I'd have to look at the free agency market. I'd have to see how it goes, trades, everything like that. But it's one of those where if there was a big name that was coming available and he looked at the Bulls and saw that basically the Bulls have 2 all-stars and a bunch of good role players around them, you definitely would want to join their team. Yeah, that's really what it is. And so, in my opinion, like you said, the Bulls really do need one more guy to contend. That's kind of how I felt about this team for the longest time. Is that Levine, if he's your number two, is a really great player at a number two position, like number two scoring option, I should say. If he is your number one scoring option, though, I don't think your team's doing as well. So that I agree. I think they're basically one player away from contending, one good player from contending. So, but getting Vucevic basically tells everybody else in the world, like, hey, if you come to the Bulls, we already have two all-stars, a decent coaching staff, good role players around them in place for you to basically just step in and be that number one player. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually
I
yeah,
don't I don't follow the NBA too much anymore outside of drama and a couple of things about the Bulls. So I also had no idea who the hell he was as well.
well, and it's that's why it was kind of surprising, because they also, like, not long before the deal was done, there was like a bunch of news about how like it was going to take a pretty decent package in order to pry him from the Magic, even though the Magic are rebuilding. So it's one of those where it was like really surprising that the Bulls were that far into the mix, because we're just so not used to it in Chicago, because for the last 20 years we basically just have punted on getting every single star that we can. I mean, you look at like players like Jimmy Butler or Derrick Rose, both of them were drafted. We didn't get them to come to our teams, nothing like that. Uh yeah, in Orlando is Orlando. I agree. It's Orlando has never been productive at all. They get guys like this where they're a superstar, they get some guys that are intriguing. Orlando moving forward is interesting because they get rid of Vucevic, get a couple picks. They get rid of Aaron Gordon. They get a couple picks there. Fournier, they got kind of fleeced on that. Fournier, they lost him for like 2 second-round picks to the Celtics, I think it was. They got kind of fleeced there, but yeah, I mean, they do kind of look promising moving forward because they have Isaac at small forward, who he needs to develop his scoring ability, but he's really talented, super big small forward who's playing very well defensively. And then they do have Fultz, if he can actually put it together finally. So they are kind of promising, but it is Orlando. So Orlando, they always do this. They like breed a star player here and there that then leaves and goes to a team that actually needs them.